Now, as any expert would tell you, the growth of a nation is determined by the quality and vision of its leaders. Transformational leadership is required for good governance, not just in Nigeria, but around the world. And with the presidential election just over a year away, there are calls for competent leaders who can tackle the country's numerous challenges head-on. The School of Politics, Policy and Governance says it's found the formula for creating capable leaders who can disrupt the political status quo and steer Nigeria towards a bright and prosperous future. The school trains individuals interested in running for public office or serving in government. So, can this new wave of leaders effect the change they want to see in Nigeria? And with me in the studio is a recent graduate of the pioneer class of the school, Juliet. Binitie is also a social entrepreneur and the director for programs at the Institute for National Transformation. Thank you so much for joining us, Juliet, on the show today.
Thank you so much, Adesuwa. It's my pleasure.
I guess congratulations are in order. You just graduated.
No, we're about to graduate.
About to graduate
on Saturday.
Great. Well, that's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow.
Oh, so congratulations are still in order.
Yes, thank you so much.
Nigeria is going into a very crucial election next year, but it comes at a time when we are seeing coups springing up in Africa again. And it begs the question, what is wrong? What is the disconnect between the governed and the government? And I ask because, except for Sudan, we've seen in other places where we've had this coup, the people praise the juntas as messiahs. What is wrong?
Thank you very much. For example, in the SPPG, School of Politics, Policy and Governance, one of the things that we also learned that as Africans, we have not learned democracy. Democracy is alien to what we grew up with. We are a nation, especially Nigeria, of kingdom and a continent of kingdoms. And so the sense of kingdomhood is more ingrained than a democratic acculturation. And so one of the things we also learned is an elite capture. When the colonial masters left, a set of elites duplicated what the colonial master did, but with a different skin color. So the sense of leadership, like Chinua Achebe was one of the books, The Trouble with Nigeria was one of the books we had to read and review, talking about the problem of Nigeria is leadership. You can imagine how long that statement was made, and it's still a problem today. And that's why the School of Politics, Policy and Governance is given an opportunity to rebrand, reshape, re-educate, in actual fact, the minds of Nigeria to have the leaders who understand what public leadership is all about, which starts from serving the people, not your pleasure. And that has not been ingrained. Nations have never changed automatically. It has to be systematically built. And that's why a school like this became very important. We're doing 15 hours every week for 8 months.
Wow.
And on full scholarship.
Full scholarship.
So somebody took a responsibility to shape a new generation to understand what public leadership is all about, which is to serve the interests of the public, not self-interest. And so that has been the problem, that many of our politicians are not educated in leadership. They are not educated in understanding what political leadership is all about. It's still power grab, just as in the kingdoms.
So I understand you say servant leaders. We need to breed people who should serve and not be served. And that's the goal. This is interesting and fascinating at the same time. But let me ask you, because leaders are not alien. Democracy may be alien to Africa, but leaders are not alien. They live within us. They come from amongst us. So have we established that this is purely a leadership problem, or it's a fundamental problem with society and the people in general? Leaders didn't fall from the sky.
Agreed, because also we grew up in a feudal system. With a feudal system where a few rules the many, and where a king's house, if you grew up in the village where the villages are, the king's palace is the most beautiful, while the whole place is in poverty. So the sense of conditioning over time, we're talking about for centuries in Africa, the sense of leadership is a leader is the one who takes the big chunk while others just follow. So we have transported the same into democracy. We've not understood how to serve Oga at the top. does not sound like Oga to serve. So that sense of lack of understanding of what public leadership is all about has been the bane. And a school like ours is preparing a generation to begin to shift their mindset to understanding clearly, because we had faculty from all over the world, and we had to shift our mindset that if other people succeeded in this game plan, we can do the same.
Someone listening to you may say, okay, this is great. This was learned in school. It's all theory. How do you practicalize this? How does a school like yours effect the change? What is the strategy here? As Nigerians head to these crucial elections next year, what should they look out for in their to-be leaders? How do you practicalize what your school is preaching?
For example, the class size over 150, about 170, were divided into groups. And part of the responsibility that each group leader, each group creates a project called the Capstones Project for activation, meaning involving yourself in society. And there's one thread that went through the lecture was the office of the citizens. Okay. We realized that even as citizens also, we have responsibility for why we have bad leadership. We are all responsible. This is not just on leadership side, even the citizens themselves, because we need to understand how does a leader look like? What is the definition of that leadership? How do we scale it? How do we characterize it? How do we understand it? And so we went through the fact that some group had a project for voters registration. Other people have a project for awareness. My group, we did a book. We captured all the minds of our students, about 50 stories of how they went through the journey and the lectures and how we are going to make impact. So we are taught also the beginning of impact is to create that consensus, the ability to bring citizens together. So we are looking for that office of the citizenship, and it starts by different kind of programs that will attract people to understand where we are going and how to do it. But we know it's not an overnight journey. But the journey has begun.
It has begun.
Yes.
And let me ask you, are you running for office to practicalize
this?
Yes.
I want to run for office.
You want to? What's stopping you?
But we are still looking at the terrain. But I'm working with political parties, particular political parties, as a think tank to understand the terrain. Because I rather start with the reformation agenda to begin to create the mind shift. Because we can't put a new thing in this old way of doing things. It will not work. So what we're doing in the school, we learned a lot of things from political economy, from history to ethics, and a whole lot of leadership tools. And also issue of gender. I mean, SPPG was big on gender issues. So we have all been encouraging, even as females, to not to be shy, to shy away from political office. We're looking forward to that, but we need to create organization, community organizing right at the grassroots and begin to organize and identify with our people. Because sometimes, even as graduates, educated people, we are sometimes too far away from the people. So we are merging that gap to create and understand clearly that the office of the citizen is just not the elite class, but right there to the grassroots and how we can organize them.
Indeed, because I was wondering, how you intend to execute, and you said you can't put a new thing in an old bottle. Because more often than not, when you look at the Nigerian politics, the odds are often against the most vulnerable. And the most vulnerable in the Nigerian politics are the poor, the women, the young. And, so I'm wondering, how do these women get into that office? But when you say old bottle, are you saying we cannot get it right in Nigeria until we get out the major political parties, such as the PDP and the APC? You
could renew some bottles and you could just discard the bottles depending on the dimension.
So which should we do in Nigeria?
We should, as much as possible, two things. There are two scenarios. Infiltrate, overtake.
Infiltrate and overtake.
Or create a mega and create a consensus.
Okay.
What happened at the toll gate with the NSAR movement showed the possibility of organizing. And I believe that the youths are more populated than any adult in town. If they are organized, can find organizing voices around the dimension of public leadership that serves for the interests of the people. That is the narrative. And we have people who are creating those narratives even amongst us, going in and understanding what we need to do to get the people to understand that this shouldn't be. I mean, look at what happened in Anambra State. Anything can happen now. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
Yes.
As a Nigerian voter who's watching you, what should I really look out for? You've said, we need to be particular this time around and transforming the people, because the leaders do emerge from the people.
Of course.
What should I do? I mean, I have my voters card, permanent voters card now, and I'm counting down to election day. I'm seeing all sorts of people coming out declaring. I'm seeing recycled faces, I'm seeing new faces. What do you tell me?
Precedence.
Okay.
You look inward and see who has used you to get to where he's going, and who have served you to be a blessing. Character, competence, very important things. Who is this individual? And that's why educating the citizens also is as important as getting good leadership. So we need to create that narrative and consensus around those narrative of showcasing what leadership has done in the world, which we all admire today. In a technological world, we all see what is happening and how those who are running abroad, for whatever reason, are having, in quotes, a better lifestyle. And so we have to create the narrative that we can create it, because nations are not automated but created. And so we need to look at precedents. Who is this individual? Has he served the interests of the people above himself? We need to critically examine. There's no more stories and fear. Nobody owns our lives. We are the voters. We should determine, because even the Constitution gives the power to the people to decide. And so when the people decide against themselves, we have ourselves to blame. So now another opportunity has come, and it's the responsibility especially of the millions of youths who are 18 to 35 to determine that no, you can't just think about your comfort and your stomach infrastructure and comfort infrastructure. You should think about the national structure, because after the election cycle, reality comes back. So these are the kind of narratives. We have people who are so concerned about driving things at the grassroots. Yeah. We have those who are concerned about driving at the elite level. But the bottom line is that we need to create the office of the citizens who understand how leadership looks like in comparison. There's one subject matter that was so critical to us that Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, who's the founder, told us. She said evidence-based policies and evidence-based leadership. So we are not here to just play another game, because it's our lives. And if we sell it off, it's to our detriment. We have ourselves to blame. Exactly. And it's time to get this right. Juliet Binitie, thank you so much. She's from the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, founded by Obi Ezekwesili, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili. Yes. Thank you so much for coming, and congratulations once again. Save me a drink for tomorrow. Sure. Thank you so much.